Adam, talk to us about Taboola. Set the stage for what you're doing at Taboola.
Sure. We started the company 6.5 years ago with a vision to connect people with content they may like and never knew existed. Sort of building a search engine, but in reverse. Instead of people looking for content, content should be looking for people. And now, 6.5 years into it, we're fortunate to be working with over 1,000 publishers such as Time Magazine, Bloomberg, Huffington Post, and many others, and helping people that consume content discover other stuff that they may like from the site they're on, as well as from all around the web.
I've heard you talk about that we're entering into the decade of attention. Tell us about what you mean there.
Yeah, I was trying to think what changed. What's the biggest thing that changed? And I think in the past, when you look at how we used to work versus 2014 or perhaps even this decade, I think the biggest change is users' attention, or perhaps the fight for users' attention. We used to see agencies that were doing SEO and agencies that were doing social, and then agencies that did content creation and sort of like specializing in different things. And I think Jordan mentioned this before, and I completely agree. I think that's a problem now because users are just becoming everywhere. They're playing Candy Crush, they're reading an article, they're on their mobile phone, they're watching a video, they're on Facebook stream. And the question now is brands and agencies have to ask themselves is, in this new flow of an experience that people have, how do we become part of it? And I think the way to become part of it is to create some of those experiences yourself. And then the question is, how do you create the content? How do you make it searchable? How do you make it discoverable? So I think the future is sort of an agency brand that's looking at integrated marketing, a little bit of everything.
Okay. One of the things we know is that we get very excited about content. We feel that content will get into these spaces that people are consuming other content in and being active and engaging with their friends in. But what makes content good? How do we make good content?
I think this is
or how do we define good content? Right?
I think this is a really tricky and important question. And I think that we're still, again, and following what our previous conversation, in a sort of challenging time. Because what is the purpose of content? Is it just for people to consume it? Is it for people to consume it and then do something with it? Is it for people to consume it, do something with it, and come back? And I think those questions will define the success of this industry.
Is there one question there, or are there multiple questions?
I think the question is, in the end, the goal is to get whoever paid for that content to be distributed and created work. And different people want different stuff. We work with a big shoe company who told us we have this amazing YouTube channel, but no one is searching for shoes. So can you get people to share our shoe videos? And that was a great question. Never had that before.
It's a group that likes those, by the way.
And so we made it happen. And we were looking for people around the web that have an affinity for shoe content consumption, with also an affinity to share it afterwards. And others, all they want is for someone to sign up to a newsletter. And others want people to comment. And I think it starts with, what are you trying to get? What is success worth to you? And how can we make it work? And I think the challenge we're now facing is that content no longer acts the purpose of what it used to be per se. I think it also has a huge responsibility to drive, again, sales and loyalty with consumers and create a conversation that didn't exist before.
So I keep hearing all the different parts of and the requirements of marketing and moving a potential customer through the funnel to actually make a sale. I keep hearing all the different parts there. Is there anything that content can't do in that funnel of prospect to customer? Is there any part in there that content just simply doesn't do very well?
I think content should not be mistaken for an immediate buy me type of action that we used to look for. I think it's more of a purchase funnel strategy. It's more of a process strategy versus a campaign strategy. When you're thinking about content marketing, it's a marathon. You create content, and then you think about where that should be consumed and what's the next chapter afterwards. And as an example, we work with companies that start with awareness content distribution. All they want you to know is that it exists. And then they'll progress you to a review on CNET. They want you to consider. And then afterwards, they'd like you to maybe sign up so that you'll be part of that community. And over time, they'll even drive you to forums to drive loyalty and response. So I think for brands that have the patience and courage to do something that may take more than a week or a month, they have an ability to create this long-term conversation with consumers. And I think you're seeing amazing examples out there. Amex, instead of showing you a picture of an American Express card, are creating contents that helps a small business in the country to run their business. Bank of America is creating happy money habits to help you save money. And the goal behind that is, if I gain your trust and I give you value in your day-to-day stuff that you need to do, you may consider working with me over time. And when you do, we're going to work together for a long time. So I think that's the shift. And so I think content cannot do what ads used to do in terms of this now experience.
Got it. Is there one piece of content that be created that goes down the whole funnel? Or do you have to have, is it better to have content in each layer in the funnel, each step in the funnel? Like something specific, more targeted?
I think it needs to be, I think you at least want to think about it once as to what are the steps that I need to pursue. It could be that you'll find a way, as an example, some of the examples we just mentioned, they'll have a content site, they'll become publishers, they'll have a newsletter on the right rail, they'll have commenting and earned media, they'll have a call to action button that says sign up or tell us what you think. So they'll try to merge different angles from the purchase funnel and see what's working and what's not. And in other cases, it really starts with, again, like a YouTube channel, a social channel, a third-party promotional channel. They'll promote a Forbes article or CNET review, and all the way to the bottom when the article is more call to action, consider us right now. So I think it varies.
Right.
I haven't seen the silver bullet example that I can share, but I think at the very least you want to think about it and be okay with making a lot of mistakes because it's different.
Understood. Taboola is on so many different platforms at this point and connecting content to users. Is there any data that's coming out of there that seems very profound to you, that seems very, that the market is moving or changing, or anything that's really standing out and guiding you at this point?
Yeah, well, there's one thing that my chief technology officer told me a few weeks ago that struck me as an amazing piece of information, and that is that the Taboola now recommends to 300 million people a month. And growing fast. And we want to ask ourselves, as opposed to display advertising as an example, if someone clicked on a Taboola recommendation from around the web, what's the likelihood they'll click on it again? Amazon said that it's really hard to disappoint people, and it's easier to disappoint you and hard to gain your trust. So we're asking ourselves, how good of a job are we doing with this? And we saw that this month, 70 to 75% of the people that clicked on Taboola recommendation in the past 90 days will click again. And that's an amazing metric for us because it means that people trust the value and they'll try it again, as opposed to 0.1% click-through rates on a banner. We see very high intent and results, and I think that's a good sign.
Excellent. Panelists, I want you to pick up on the last thing that Adam talked about in particular, this idea of easy to disappoint, hard to gain trust. How does content play in that with a brand's relationship with its customers or its potential customers? It's
authenticity. It's how you're putting yourself into that content at the end of the day. I mean, if you're going to be so bold as going, hi, it's brought to you by, or it's done in a way that it's so obvious, you sort of lose that trust. You lose that faith. It feels too created versus the brand actually weaving themselves into the conversation and sort of that dialogue. I mean, what's interesting is that movie studios have done this for years. I mean, we're now talking about content, but movie studios have always integrated brands authentically, whether it's an Audi vehicle in a movie or someone eating something, or it kind of feels like it's a part of the scene versus being so obvious in the way that advertisers, I think, are trying too hard at times.
I would say authenticity for sure, and then relevancy. So, why does the content exist in the first place? I like to think, in addition to just brand content, an example as I was listening to the conversation is that I remember seeing a piece of content about a year ago that was produced by a watch company, and they produced this very sort of sultry content, very romantic content about a man wearing a watch and being playful with his lady, right? And that was sort of top of the funnel type stuff. This watch is in situ, maybe in a situ that you'd like to be in, right? But then you go all the way down funnel and you think about the purchase experience at Zappos, and whether you're buying a pair of shoes or whatever it is that you're buying, you can see a 45-second piece of video around how the shoe bends, around how it looks from the side, the back, the front. the guys, the models feeling about the shoes for whatever that's worth, because he typically doesn't dislike the shoes. But you're getting a sense, so that's totally down funnel. And I think if you take a look at that, content can play a whole bunch of roles as we get more and more virtual with our decisions.
How do you gain that authenticity? How does a brand deliver content that is authentic? I mean, how do you do that? Isn't everything a sales message, and is that authentic? And do you mean authentic in a way that the customers, your audience, wants to read it? How does a brand do that?
It's the brand attributes. It's us as an agency sitting down and like Jordan was talking about earlier, is diving into what is the brand talking about? Who are they talking to? It's not about just saying, well, that goes with this because it's entertainment and everyone's going to talk about it. It's what are the attributes of the brand, like the watch example, or things that really create emotion and allow you to tie into that emotion. That's the authenticity. It makes it feel right. And clients, brands at the end of the day with consumers call it out immediately. I mean, it's the social marketplace now. I mean, I can call you out within 10 seconds and say that this is ridiculous. It doesn't even work, or it makes sense.
Now, the more we go down the road, the less there's a difference between how we plan creative in the old advertising world and how we plan content in the new mechanism, which is why we look at advertising tucking in under creative and content. It's the same principles. It might be a little bit more dynamic right now, or there might be different ways of approaching it that are fairly new to the industry, but the brief is starting to look more similar. The targeting is starting to look more similar. The distribution is starting to look more similar.
And remember something, content in that respect, I mean, rich media. These are things that were foundations of when we were playing creatively. We used to do rich media ads that you expand open and time spent, and people were digging into more content. You had clients that were CPG, and you'd expand and get recipes and all these things. We weren't sitting back 10 years ago and saying, ooh, content. It was about engagement.
Right.
Now it's content. It's just another way of talking about how we realistically, at the end of the day, are engaging with the consumer.